someone. I have Mimo on.
We're live.
We're live. How exciting.
Yes.
I need to mute you in Discord there. How are you today, Steve?
I'm good. Hot feet. How are you?
All right. I think you might have cut yourself off a little bit too much when you worked on the dynamics processor. It's clipping. We're messing around with the audio, guys.
How about here?
Yeah, now I can hear the rumbling.
Well, okay. So we'll do this later.
Yeah, we can do it afterwards. But before we quit playing at all, I think we should do it today, because I would love to fix it with that. But it's probably time for roll call. Where's Alan?
Yeah, where's Alan?
You can't do roll call without Alan.
Yeah, we need his GIF.
Send him a telegram. I'm going to send him a telegram, and he talks to me all the time in Telegram, so I'm going to ask him.
Jill's got it.
Where are you?
Jill's got it covered.
Do roll call without you. We will take that as an excellent stand-in. Jill, I appreciate you taking on that role. We'll make sure that everybody knows that Jill stands in for Alan when he can't be here to do roll call, because we got to have all these important responsibilities, right?
You have a new job, Jill.
We've got Kevin and Bruce and Jason and Frank and Jill and John and Rose and Sandy and Steve and Michael, and I think I heard. Let's see who's fooling around down here at the tail end there. Is Wheels here? Where is he? In Rose? I already said Rose. Yeah, Jason, but it makes Alan so happy. I like to let him do it. All other GIFs belong to you, okay? I think it's fair that he gets just that one. Checking on Wheels, good. Yep. We can't we don't have Alan, we don't have Wheels. This is terrible. All right, I think we've already done a sound check. So I think we are probably ready to get started.
Okay.
And where's preview? They moved the preview button in Mars Edit. It makes me crazy. I can't find it. All right.
How about a chapter mark?
You gotta have a chapter mark before I get started. You just got muted. That's the end of that. All right, here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, April 18th, 2021, and this is show number 832. Well, Steve and I are super happy that Apple has decided to have the next event on our birthday, April 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I think it was really considerate of them, even though this announcement and whatever they do at WWDC are likely to cost the Podfeed podcast a great deal of money. You see, Steve's 13-inch MacBook Pro is not quite up to snuff for running the live show when we're on the road, and maybe we'll get to go on the road this year. And his 27-inch iMac is nearly pushed to its limit for the live show as well. If they come out with an M1 for either or both of those, we're going to have to do it. And then, I'm not going to be able to stand it for Steve to have an M1 laptop and not me. So if the 16-inch gets updated, we're positively doomed. And also, my 12.9-inch iPad Pro is coming up on 3 years old. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. But I want a new one. And then if they throw in a new Apple TV and AirPods Pro, I'm going to have to sell a kidney, I think. And I might as well throw some AirTags in my shopping bag while I'm at it, right? Oh, it's going to get ugly this year. Well, in any case, if you're planning on watching the event, please join Steve and me in our live chat room at podfeet.com/chat. It's really great fun to watch together this way. And don't worry, Steve and I don't do any video or audio. We just text chat like everybody else, so you're not listening to us blather on and you're missing things. If you've never joined the live show, and this is really a great way to get your toes wet, meeting fellow NosillaCastaways. Now, Steve says you don't have to bring us birthday presents, but you know what? He doesn't speak for me. I remember one time we went out to dinner for our birthday, and the waitress asked if we were celebrating anything, and I explained it was both of our birthdays, but that Steve most definitely did not want his birthday celebrated. He didn't want any attention, but I did. She came back with this little tiny cake, and it had a sign on it with 2 arrows, one saying her birthday and one pointing in the other direction that said not his birthday. Best time ever. Anyway, I hope we'll be able to see you guys all in the chat room for the spring-loaded event from Apple. And I'm going to change that. I'm trying to say folks instead of guys. Let me fix that. Best time ever. I can tell you unmuted yourself because of the rumble. Anyway, I really hope to see all of you in the chat room for the Spring Loaded event from Apple on Tuesday. Okay. Yinzer, Bruce suggests. I did an informal poll on Twitter asking what are good substitutions for guys, and it was really, really interesting. Got a lot of interesting responses, but definitely folks was the top contender. That most people felt that was an acceptable way to go.
That's a folksy way to go.
Yeah, I was afraid it would be a little bit too precious, but everybody seemed to like it. So,
yeah. You got your chapter mark in there, okay?
I do. Boom. Already done. Already got it.
Excellent.
All right. So, muting Steve. Let's see. Over here. Right there. In Chit Chat Across the Pond this week, we have another episode of Programming by Stealth. We continue on our journey to learn how to use Git to do version control still as a single person, but this time with multiple devices. As Bart says during this episode, who's learning to program here that doesn't have multiple computers? We've learned how to push our changes to a single separate repo, but we had to always say what branch we wanted to push to what branch was on the origin. In this installment, we learn how to tell Git to track our branches so that they stay in sync without us having to tell Git every time which branches to push where. We also learn how to make sure our annotated tags get pushed as well by setting a single repo or all Git repos on our computers to push our tags. Bart leaves us with a big tease at the end. We learn how to clone a repo in preparation for having two computers accessing the code at the same time in Git, with the primary source acting as the go-between for them, only we don't actually get to do it. We make the clone and then he stops because that's going to be part 2, which will be in 2 weeks. You can find Chit Chat Across the Pond and Programming by Stealth in particular in your, and I forgot the phrase, podcatcher of choice. You can find this episode either under Chit Chat Across the Pond or Programming by Stealth in your podcatcher of choice. Chapter marks. Well, that's a way we could go. You know what? I'm gonna be right back.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna fix Steve's audio right now. I will be right back. You'll see me on Steve's camera. Pop open that little thing.
Whoops.
That, yeah. Okay. Let go. So what you do? Oh wow, that's high.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
This is, I had it there and you were saying
and then you go like that so that it doesn't clip like that. But wow, that is a narrow band. That shows you how big that is.
Test.
Okay.
So how does this sound?
Let's see. Don't talk. I can still hear it. It's still bumping above the dot, isn't it? Maybe slide the dot a little bit to the right. Right enough.
No, the dot isn't where it clips, right? As long as
it is.
No, it's not the way.
I know how this tool works. I use it all the time.
That's an input versus output. It's a faster attenuation of the output versus the input with that steep slope, but it's not clipped. That line has to be vertical for it to be clipped. Yes.
It's
not vertical.
I'm asking you to move the dot up the line a little bit.
Up the line?
Yes. Not the one down on the bottom.
Okay, how about there?
Let's see. Yes. Now talk to me.
And you can still hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
We'll leave it like that.
Yeah, it's save.
Well, I will.
Command S. It's right there. Okay. Let's see. I want to get. this one. Here we go. Okay, so I explained to a couple people before. I don't know if everybody was here yet, but I posted 2 blog posts on the part 1 and part 2 about the Synology storage, but I'm only going to read one of them this week. What is that giant link? John, that's a lot. I'll be back. Nice. Okay, I'm going to start recording. Boy, I'm going to forget to mute you because I can't hear the rumble. All right, here we go. About 9 months ago, I bought a Synology disk station, which is a network-attached storage device, also known as a NAS. I bought the DS1019 Plus, which is a 5-bay unit, and I populated it with 5 4-terabyte Western Digital drives. Now, 20 terabytes... 20 terabytes? Now, 20 terabytes sounds like a massive amount of storage, but you don't actually get nearly that much when you put storage into a NAS. One of the main purposes of having a NAS is to have data protection. It's not really a backup per se, but a disk can go bad in your array, and all of your data is still safe. Now, there's other levels of arrays of RAID where you can do more than that, but what I'm talking about right now is done with a technology called, now, RAID 5. Is it RAID 5? Yeah, it is RAID 5. I'm going to start this over because I ad-libbed and I shouldn't have. Now, 20 terabytes sounds like a massive amount of storage, but you don't actually get nearly that much. One of the main purposes of having a NAS is to have data protection. It's not really a backup per se, but you can have, say, one disk go bad in your array and all of your data will still be safe. This is done with a technology called RAID 5 in this case, which stands for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. Now, the word inexpensive is in the name because you don't have to buy one giant expensive drive. You can buy lots of smaller drives and create one giant volume in your array. It still does cost a lot of money to populate it, though, if you get big enough drives. In order to be able to have a disk go bad and still have all of your data, by definition, I'm going to do it again. I don't like that it says RAID 5. It happens to show RAID 5 here, but... Now, 20 terabytes sounds like a massive amount of storage, but you don't actually get nearly that much actual storage. One of the main purposes of having a NAS is to have data protection. It's not really a backup per se, but a disk can go bad in your array, and all of your data can still be safe. This is done with a technology called RAID, which stands for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. Now, the word inexpensive is in the name, not because the drives are that inexpensive, but because you don't have to buy one giant expensive drive like 20 terabytes, but instead you buy lots of smaller drives and you create one giant volume in your array. Now, in order to be able to have a disk go bad and still have all of your data, by definition, my 20 terabytes of purchased disks could never give me more than 16 terabytes. In order to keep track of where the data is on the 5 drives and keep it striped across them to provide the fault tolerance we just talked about, you need some space dedicated to run those calculations, and that space is called parity. Now, Synology provides a RAID stored calculator, a lot of companies do, so you can virtually build your array with the drives you could afford and then see how much usable storage you'll effectively get. It's actually pretty fun to play with, but it's also rather depressing. It demonstrates the storage with either RAID 5 or with their own Synology Hybrid RAID, also called SHR. Now, I have to admit right here that I went with SHR because Stephen Getz told me to. Anyway, the bottom line is that with my 20 terabytes of purchased drives, I get just 14.54 terabytes. Stumbling. Anyway, the bottom line is that with my 20 terabytes of purchased drives, I get just 14.54 terabytes of usable space of that 20 terabytes worth of raw disk. The problem to be solved today is figuring out how I used up nearly all of that storage in only 9 months. And I want to figure out how to gain some breathing room without selling that kidney, because, I need that kidney for the next Apple event. All right, so let's talk about what we're using the Synology for. We have several categories of data. First, we have financial and medical data that we do not want stored on any of our computers, and we definitely don't want them in the cloud. We have Steve's video files, both his completed videos, but all of the raw source data that goes into making his videos. We have my audio files from the podcasts, both the published MP3s and all of the raw audio input. We have our ripped DVD collection, which allows the Synology to act as a Plex server so we can watch videos from other places. It's coming into our home server. We also have a folder for scanned photos from our physical photo albums. Since the initial installation was only 9 months ago, we have used 81% of the available space, which sends the Synology into high alert status. Once it gets past 80%, man, it's like danger, Will Robinson. It gets all annoyed at you. So it was time to look at the storage we're using and see what we can throw away. For example, do I really need Bart's original stereo recording of every Chit Chat Across the Pond and my original stereo recording of the same episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond and the Hindenburg version, which contains the same stereo data yet again, and the M4A, which includes the same data, and the MP3, which is easily available on the internet? So that's like 5 copies, I think, by the time we're done, 3 of which are uncompressed. So you could pretty much see where I'm going here, that we probably don't need all of that data. Now, whenever I start down the path of trying to remove data from a drive, I make sure to start with the biggest types of files. Have you ever done this? You spend like 3 weeks throwing away text files and you gain like a few hundred megabytes? Get rid of a few photos and you might clean out a gigabyte in the same level of effort. Call your videos, and now you're talking hundreds of gigabytes of data retrieved with the same level. No, not data retrieved. Start calling your videos, and you're talking hundreds of gigabytes. What's the word I'm looking for? Retrieved, harvested. That's what I'm looking for. Call your videos, and you're talking hundreds of gigabytes that you're going to be able to harvest with the same level of effort. Now, the next step after starting down the spring cleaning path is to think, can I just throw money at this problem instead? Because this is really boring. Anyway, you need to make a trade-off to decide whether to spend money or time. So the first thing I considered was just replacing some of the 4 terabyte drives with 8 terabyte drives. As depressing as it was to fill the Synology up with drives in the first place and to be only able to use 70% of what I paid for, it was even more depressing to look at replacing drives. Using Synology's RAID calculator again, I simulated one by one replacing one 4 terabyte drive at a time with an 8 terabyte drive. I recorded how much space I would gain for each drive added and how much it would cost me at around $200 for each 8 terabyte drive I added. I put the chart in the show notes, but here's the progression of replacing 4 terabyte drives with 8 terabytes. The first drive replacement gains you absolutely nothing, because you need 2 of a given size drive in order for one to be able to go bad and all of the data still be protected. But from there on up, swapping in an 8 terabyte for a 4 terabyte gains you 4 terabytes. It's quite depressing, though, to spend $400 on 2 drives and gain only 4 terabytes. After running this analysis, I decided it didn't seem like smart money spent, so it was time to go back to deleting data. Now, even though I suspected Steve's video files were taking up most of the storage, I didn't think it would be prudent to point fingers his way until I'd done some work culling my own data. My share folder on the Synology is using 2.9 terabytes of the 11 terabytes we're currently using, so it's a sizable chunk. Now, it turns out 1.2 terabytes of that is my last good bootable backup of my Mac before my last nuke and pave, and I'm not getting rid of that one. But that leaves us with 1.7 terabytes of my data that I could clean up. I started going through every folder of Chit-Chat audio and getting rid of the uncompressed recordings I mentioned earlier. Now remember that for many of the shows, I have as many as 3 copies of that uncompressed audio. I deleted all of the duplicates for an entire year, and it didn't gain enough space to register to the first significant digit. Well, it was time to target Steve's video folder. Of the 11 terabytes we're currently using, the videos take up over 7 terabytes. Just like in Mac OS, on the Synology, it's very difficult to see the sizes of the enclosed folders. I started by right-clicking on each of the top-level folders, pulling down to properties, waiting for it to populate with the size, and then recording the number in a spreadsheet. This was going to get old real fast. A bit of searching on the internet's found a nifty app for Synology called Storage Analyzer. With this app, you can point it at a set of folders on the Synology, and it will create a lovely report on the size of the folders and subfolders, and it'll look for duplicates and much more. You can ask it to run this task on a regular basis so you can keep an eye on things, or you can run it manually. Now, I don't want to do a commercial for Synology, but the vast number of quality apps available is one of the reasons I chose Synology. I love how storage and I am clumsy mouth today. All right. I love how Storage Analyzer works, and I truly wish we had it on Mac OS, a way to always be able to see your folder sizes. When the report finishes running, you get a pie chart of the subfolders in the share you asked it to analyze. Next to that colorful pie chart, you get a list of folders showing file count and folder size. Each line in that list can be double-clicked to show the file sizes of its enclosed folders. Of the 7 terabytes of videos, Steve's Final Cut libraries take up 4.5 terabytes. Drilling down into that folder, we can see, in order by size, the folders the next level down. Now, the cool part of this was that we could see that our CES 2020 coverage, all by itself, was nearly a full terabyte. This gave us a spark of an idea. Steve may one day want to go back and remix some of the old conference videos, but he definitely doesn't need them to be on such expensive storage. He went through the folders and he quickly identified 2 terabytes of data he could easily pull off and put on a drive in a closet. I dug in my old box of hard drives and I found a couple of 4 terabyte drives, but the stickers on them said they were 9 years old. Now, I know this data isn't mission critical, but do you want to start with such an old drive? Obviously, I would need to buy him a brand new drive. And then he pointed out that he would want a backup of that drive as well. Some people. Anyway, we started discussing whether to buy external disks in enclosures or bare drives, using a bare toaster for copying the data, but it started to get expensive and complicated. It also seemed dumb to buy 4 terabyte drives when I really needed to start expanding our storage options. That's when I came up with a better idea. If I buy 2 8 terabyte bare drives and I put them in the Synology, that buys me only 4 terabytes. However, I can harvest those 2 4 terabyte drives for Steve's cold storage of these older videos. He can move the 2 terabytes of old data onto one harvested drive and have a backup. That means my gain will actually be 6 terabytes of usable space on the Synology for the cost of the 2 8 terabyte drives. It turns out that a bare 8 terabyte drive isn't that much more than a 4 terabyte drive in an enclosure, so this was a good deal. Now, we own a drive toaster, so Steve could copy the data from the Synology to one drive, and then the copy from that one drive to the other, and then pack those bare drives in static-free bags in the closet. There's a risk, though, with that idea, because drives need to be spun up from time to time to reduce the chance of bit rot. Technically, it would work, but it was a little bit risky. Now, I like this idea a lot, and then I figured out how to spend just a little bit more money and make it more elegant and give us more options. They sell 2-bay disk enclosures with built-in hardware RAID. With one of these, I could set it up as RAID 1, which means the disks would be mirrors of each other, which is exactly what Steve wants. Now, I know it's not completely like a backup, but it's pretty close. And again, this is data that we probably will never use. We just don't want to throw it away. I started by looking at super cheap non-name brands for these RAID enclosures, but in the end I went with the OWC Mercury Elite Pro Dual Bay USB 3.0 RAID enclosure. It was $89 from B&H Photo. It looks like an adorable little cheese grater Mac Pro. The Synology has 2 USB 3.0 ports, one on the front and one on the back. So for my purposes, there was no need to get some fancier and more expensive Thunderbolt 3 version of this same enclosure. If I were buying one for some other kind of work, I would definitely go straight to OWC and buy one of the newer ones. But Synology... Nope. Not but. Isn't it cute? Where'd it go? Oh, I scrolled. That's what's wrong. When I plug this enclosure into the Synology, it will show as an attached shared USB drive, and we'll be able to drag files directly to it. The nice thing is we'll be able to keep it up and spinning, so less chance of bit rot. It can just sit in our little cabinet right next to the Synology. Now, if that doesn't work for some reason, we could always hook it up to a Mac on the network. I have a couple of those laying around, and have it manage the copy from the Synology to the RAID enclosure. Now, Mark Poley explained to me that he tried it that way, and it took absolutely forever. It was much, much slower to do it over the network and going through the Mac. In fact, he said it took a really long time when he forgot and closed the lid on the laptop that was running the copy. So hopefully I'll be able to do it just directly from the Synology to the enclosure that's plugged right into it. Well, I received the two 8 terabytes for the Synology this week, while the little 2-bay enclosure doesn't get here until Monday. The second step was going to be terrifying. I'm so glad Stephen Getz is my spirit guide to point me to the technical articles that explain how to do things and provide some advice along the way. I was going to yank out a drive from my Synology, put in the new 8 terabyte drive, and then wait while the Synology rebuilt the entire RAID system to incorporate that new drive. When it was complete, I'd have to do it again with a second drive. I asked Stephen how to start, and he asked me when the last time I ran data scrubbing on my Synology was. Data scrubbing? What's that? Stephen explained that data scrubbing on Synology is designed to fix bit rot. Evidently, you're supposed to somehow know to turn this feature on and run it on a schedule. It doesn't seem right to me that I only found out about it because Stephen Getz read the vast documentation and happened to tell me about it. If I'm supposed to run something on a schedule, I think it would be preferable if Synology had pinged me maybe after a couple of months of ownership and said, hey, did you know we have this cool feature called data scrubbing you might want to enable? Well, anyway, data scrubbing takes a long time, especially with a lot of data. It took the DS1019 Plus around 14 hours to complete on 11 terabytes of data. When that was complete, I had to face the music. It was time to take that terrifying step of pulling of one of the drives from my Synology. Now, Stephen told me I could just yank one of the drives to replace it with the Synology still running, but I followed Synology's instructions instead, which said to do a graceful shutdown first, replace the drive, and then boot it back up. As soon as it booted back up, the Synology started beeping constantly. Luckily, I found a spot in the control panel where I could turn that darn beep off. I understood the Synology was just warning me that I was in a degraded state, but I sure didn't want to listen to it all day. I verified in the Storage Manager app that it was churning away rebuilding the array, and then started to obsessively watch the progress by percentage. It's very cool that the Synology is still available to pull data from and write to during this process, but I decided not to bother it while it was working so hard. It took from 11:19 a.m. until 8:34 p.m. to repair the array, which, if my ciphering is correct, would be 9 hours and 15 minutes. It was a pretty exciting moment when it was done, even though the Synology Storage Manager showed I still only had 14.54 terabytes of storage in my storage pool. My excitement was also tempered with trepidation because I still had to go through the same terror to add the second 8 terabyte drive. I powered down and replaced the second 4 terabyte drive with the 8 terabyte drive, and I let that repair run overnight. And when I awoke, my storage pool had grown from 14.54 terabytes to 18.18 terabytes. Now, some of you have probably noted that the gain wasn't the 4 terabytes we hoped for. It was only 3.64 terabytes. There's an explanation for this, but it requires a smidge of math. When drive manufacturers spec drives, they use the decimal definition of 1 terabyte as 1,000 to the 4th bytes. But when file systems report disk space, they use the binary definition of 1 terabyte is equal to 1024 to the 4th. If we have 4 terabytes of space defined in decimals, that means we have 4 terabytes times 1,000 to the 4th. You know what? It's wrong in the show notes. I'm going to have to read that. I got to fix the, let's see, 1,000. The exponent didn't come out right.
That doesn't look wrong to me. What's the problem?
Well, okay, maybe it's only here. Let me show you what it looks like. I'll drop it into the video here.
Into the video?
Into Discord.
Oh, okay. Oh.
That's
what,
is it?
That's not how it looks in the blog post.
Okay, good.
Interesting.
So I don't have to fix it. That's just his rendering engine not where I'll give him a hard time for it later.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If we have all right, from right there. Okay, I gotta read that and say it correctly. So what are the chances? All right, here we go. If we have 4 terabytes of space defined in decimals, then the math is 4 terabytes times 1,000 to the 4th power divided by 1024 to the 4th power, which is 3.64 terabytes. Even though I understand the math, it still makes me feel like I've been cheated when I see that. The little OWC 2-bay RAID enclosure won't be here till Monday, like I said, so I haven't begun the process of offloading Steve's data just yet. I'll definitely let you know if I learn anything interesting in that setup, but at least for now, the Synology has stopped hollering at us that we're out of space. But there is another device constantly sending alarming notification that it's out of space, and that's the Drobo 5N2 that backs up the Synology. I simply can't convince myself to spend $400 to put into an older device that's just a backup of data that's already protected with fault-tolerant RAID. You do hear horror stories of people having NAS failures and not being able to get their data back, so I do lose a bit of sleep over that. The good news is that when we move the 2 terabytes of Steve's video data off of the Synology, we can also remove it from the Drobo, so maybe at least that'll keep it quiet for a while. I'm sure I'm going to have to deal with it at some point, but I'm just going to kick that can down the road. Now, at least 20% of you are wondering about what's your offsite storage plan? Well, I simply don't have one. I've looked at cold storage options with monthly fees like Wasabi at 0.006 cents per gigabyte per month. Backblaze's B2 is 0.005 cents per gig. I'm going to do that again. Those aren't cents, those are dollars. Well, I simply don't have one. Simply don't have one. I've looked at the cold storage options with their monthly fees, like Wasabi at 0.6 cents per gigabyte per month, Backblaze's B2 at 0.5 cents per gigabyte per month, and Amazon Glacier at 0.4 gigabytes per month. 0.4 cents per gigabyte per month. Amazon Glacier is the least expensive, but to back up 11 terabytes, that would cost me $44 per month. I'm definitely not going to pay over $500 per year to back up this data. Now, the truly mission-critical data is the financial and medical data, which is only around 10 gigabytes, but I'm extremely nervous about putting that data online. I've thought about making an encrypted disk image and putting that disk image in Dropbox, and that would certainly work, but a real backup is automated, and I haven't figured out how to do that just yet. If you have any ideas, I'm open to suggestion. The bottom line is that I learned a lot about how the Synology works because of this exercise, and I think I came up with a clever solution that didn't break the bank. It wasn't cheap, and it's still very disappointing how little space I gained in the end. I think if I had it to do over again, I would still buy a 5-bay Synology, but I would start by putting in 3 of the biggest drives I could possibly afford. When I started running out of storage, maybe by then the drives would have gotten less expensive, and I could put in a pair of even bigger drives. That might have given me more bang for my buck. Whew.
That was a long one. I did see one omission.
You're breaking up.
You're
breaking up, sir. Yeah, in Mimo Live. Is he breaking up to you guys in Discord?
And you are delayed. Your video is delayed.
See, Steve needs a new iMac.
Steve
is not breaking up in Discord.
So there is a missing unit here on the Backblaze B2 cost.
Yeah, that's missing the per gigabyte per month.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could fix that, that would be great.
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you. Did you read along?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That I'm reading?
All right. Yes. Actually, I'm going to change the order here. I'm going to break this up with Bruce. Alan's not here and we're doing an Everything's Fiddly.
Really?
He's going to be so sad to miss it.
Is that
Bruce.
Am I the only one who calls Apple Care?
No, I'm saying I'm going to do these two. I'm going to switch the order. I'm going to do Bruce next.
Okay, I don't. So is that different than the links you sent me? Okay.
There's no blog post for it.
Got it.
It's a maybe 2-minute recording.
All right.
So yeah, you got nothing. So I'm going to swap the order there. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot you don't have that. All right. And let me find Bruce. This is really annoying. Oh, I should chapter mark that. Let's see. Everything is fiddly.
Looks like you have a snippet for that.
I do. You saw it pop in?
Yeah.
Everything gets a snippet. If I'm going to type it more than once, I think. Ecobee. It's sort of about his Ecobee, but let's see. What happens if I no blog post? Okay, here we go. More bang for my buck.
Everything is fiddly.
Allison, this is Bruce from Texas.
Too soon. He also looks like he starts quiet.
Everything is fiddly.
Allison, this is Bruce from Texas. I have another fiddly bit that just needs to get off my chest. So we have an Ecobee thermostat, which has its ups and downs, but for the most part does what it's supposed to do.
You know, this didn't sound like that to me. Hang on, I'm going to listen to it outside of this. The first time I heard it, it didn't. This sounds horrible. Huh. Oh, maybe it just gets better.
Well, yesterday, for no apparent reason, it decided to not.
I'm going to put him on his own track and see if I can. There's a magic thing in noise reduction thing in Hindenburg. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. So a little noise reduction thing came up here, and I'm going to play that, see if it sounds better.
Fiddly.
Allison, this is Bruce from Texas. I have another fiddly bit that just needs to get off my chest. So we have an Ecobee thermostat, which has its ups and downs, but for the most part does what it's supposed to do. Well, yesterday, for no apparent
I think
reason,
it's an echo of
it
his own
decided
voice.
to not connect with our Wi-Fi anymore. My wife woke me up this morning because the house was warmer than it should be and couldn't connect to the Ecobee to fix the problem. So after fiddling with it and trying to get it to connect to the Wi-Fi,
I'm going to make you guys listen to that story later because I want to keep going. I don't know if that fixed it. It sounds like it almost sounds like his own voice delayed right after he talks.
So we got about a 2-second delay. 1.5, 2 seconds from your video. Audio.
How are your processors doing?
90, and my GPU is 96.
CPU's 96?
No, GPU is 96. CPUs are all at 90. Well, one of them's 95. Yeah, they're getting hammered.
Yeah, mine is at about 65.
Yeah.
I don't know where do you see the GPU? Oh, that's a separate control,
Yeah.
right? Oh well, can't do anything about it.
Nope.
All right, I'm going to talk to him for a second, and then I will put the chapter marker in. But make sure I still remember, Kevin. You got to do it again in a second.
and I will always stay subscribed.
Oh my gosh, Bruce, that is epically bad. I mean, it's pretty fiddly to unplug an Ecobee, isn't it? I installed mine myself, and as I recall, that would require unwiring it, wouldn't it? Anyway, that seems like a problem with Ecobee, not with AT&T, because they're doing the right thing by updating your router, but you having to reset the Ecobee every time AT&T changes things. That's crazy. That's crazy. I can't imagine. That would really drive me nuts. Well, thanks for telling us about that. And if you ever figure out how to make it stop doing that, we'd sure love to hear about it. Yeah, when AT&T updates the firmware on his router, his Ecobee has to be unplugged and reset.
Every time?
Every time he gets an update from AT&T on his router, it
Does
knocks
that happen?
his Ecobee offline.
Does that happen very often?
Well, apparently it's happened more than once.
It's seamless. I don't recall if we're getting updates. I don't even see them. I don't. It's transparent
Updates
to me.
to our router, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to check it all the time, but I think it happens automatically now on the Verizon router. I used to check it. I had a reminder to check once a month, and it was always doing it on its own. So, all right, it's time to talk about AppleCare. This one's not too long.
Did you get your chapter mark in there?
I did, because Kevin reminded me twice. Sounds
Marker
like something
6.
strange
It doesn't look. Doesn't look like it got the. It says marker 6. Is that right?
Oh, it does. That's weird. And Mike isn't here to have witnessed it. Let me delete that. How could it have gotten part of it? Let me find that. Let's try that again. All right. Maybe I didn't copy it twice. Okay, here goes.
There we
go. Operator trouble.
We're good.
Thank you for noticing that. You're very alert tonight. All right. Here we go. In macOS Big Sur just lately, there's a problem that has been plaguing most of my nerd friends, and it's the Mac App Store failing to download updates. It starts with a notification that there are updates. You click on the notification to launch the Mac App Store. At this point, you can, of course, choose to update all or just update one at a time. Whether the updates are done all in one fell swoop or individually, one or more apps will return the error, unable to download app, with a suggestion to just try later. This happens on my 2020 M1 Mac Mini. It happens on my 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. It happens on my 2016 15-inch MacBook Pro. It happens all the time. I rarely get a set of updates that all go through properly. I've asked in our Slack community, and many people wrote back that they see this often as well, so I knew it wasn't me. I hadn't played with the Mac Mini in a while, but I decided to work from it for a bit this week. There were 22 updates to run, so I thought I might as well spin the dial and update all just for the comedy. 1Password wouldn't download. Mars Edit wouldn't download. Even Apple's motion and compressor apps wouldn't download. It was ridiculous. Well, because it's always a productive thing to do, I wrote an angry tweet about this, and I addressed it to @Apple. Tom Schmidt and Wayne Dixon both saw it and say sometimes deleting the app and re-downloading this it helps because it happens to them. Tom Hamby sees it on his iMac. Timothy I'm going to pronounce this right. Timothy Gajenvik says he's been seeing it intermittently for months. Gadget Coma says he sees it on both his M1 Mac Mini and his iMac. Sandy Foster is also frustrated with this. Storm Gorelli was delighted to find out it's not just his Macs. Jeff Gamet wants to start a betting pool each time on which app won't download. Wayne Dixon thought it was an issue with signing. In other words, this is a pretty well-known problem if I can find that many people on a quick tweet. Well, Apple tweeted back to me, but it was a ruse. They tricked me into making an AppleCare phone call appointment. They had kind of a slick way of doing it. They sent me a URL in an open tweet, which had me log in with my Apple ID, and then the link took me to a direct message within Twitter. I'd never seen that done before. We were able to communicate freely with things like my serial number and phone number on which I'd like to be called. When Jonathan from Apple called me, I was worried that he would make me go through the steps in Apple's support article entitled, "If You Can't Download or Update Apps on Your Mac." I asked him before we did any diagnostics, could he just please check to verify this is a known issue and just make another check mark next to it that another person called it in? I knew it would be, and I didn't want to spend all that time fooling around with testing just my Mac. Now, here's the curious thing, and the thing that prompted me to write this up. Jonathan did some research and said he didn't find it as a known issue. He did, however, find it as a known issue on iOS. I bet I'm not even remembering that this also happens on my iPhone and iPad. So if all these friends of mine are having this exact same problem, it would seem that there must be a remarkably large set of people I don't know who are also experiencing this. So I started wondering, maybe I'm the only person who ever calls AppleCare? I gave this question further thought, and now I'm wondering whether things are just so fiddly these days. We just accept this kind of nonsense because we're tired. Now, my AppleCare experience was as good as it could have been, but it took 1 hour and 20 minutes of my day. Who has time for that? Nobody but me, evidently. Jonathan was great, and he only focused on capturing the problem in real time. I had 5 apps that refused to download the day before, so he had me record my screen on my MacBook Pro as I tried to download them again. You know what happened, of course. Every app downloaded just fine. Now, he still believed me, but the worst news was it took forever. At one point, when it was either Apple's Motion or compressor was downloading, at first it was coming in at 80 megabits per second, which is fantastic, but then it slowed down to 48 kilobits per second toward the end. It was, as my mother would say, like watching grass grow. It took 11 minutes for the 5 apps to download successfully. I'm sorry, that was on the M1 Mac Mini, not on my MacBook Pro. But it took 11 minutes for us to watch it work. And since I had a captive audience, I took the opportunity to tell Jonathan all about my podcast. I started by asking him if he likes podcasts, and he said he doesn't listen to them. But, is that going to stop me? Of course not. I suggested he must not have a commute. I was right, he doesn't. Then I said, I listen to podcasts while I work out. He said that when he used to work out, he used to listen to podcasts too. This poor guy. I mean, we're just watching grass grow here. I got this captive audience. He was in for it now. I was not only going to market my shows to him, he was in for what I like to think of as Allison's amazing tips for how to get into working out. Luckily for Jonathan, the test eventually finished. He pointed out that I said the failure happens on all of my Macs, so he said, can we just try another one? I had my 2019 MacBook Pro right there and more inspirational stories about working out at the ready for Jonathan, so I told him I was game. The good news is that the Mac App Store did fail on one app on the MacBook Pro, so we caught it in the act in video, and he had me take a screenshot of it as well. When we were done, he had me run what they call a sysdiagnose, which ran long enough that Jonathan got to learn my mantra that you will only truly start working out regularly when you can honestly say the words, I want to work out, not I have to work out. Well, Jonathan and I have an appointment for next week to chat about the findings, but I highly suspect this is going to be one of those problems that will, quote unquote, go to engineering, which is Apple speak for, you will never get a response. Maybe it'll come back with, this is a known issue, which would be a wee bit frustrating since Jonathan researched that for me before we started. But maybe the data we collected will help them figure out why this is happening to everyone else, including me. The bottom line is, it appears that I'm the only person on earth who actually calls AppleCare, but since I'm retired, I feel like it's my community service duty to do this for everyone else. And one more thing, before we hung up, Jonathan asked me the name of my podcast. Isn't that sweet of him? Maybe he liked that I sang the Jeopardy song to him while the sysdiagnose was running. There we go.
So the delay is back. It seems we're back in the situation where it occurs while you're recording. And then you catch up when you come back. Talk now.
So it's not delayed now?
It's delayed now. It usually takes half a minute, but we'll see. We'll see if it catches up here.
There's nothing I can do, right?
I guess not. It's just I'm trying to figure out where all this points.
I don't know. We need new M1 Max. It'll be fixed next week, Steve.
Right.
Run a sysdiagnose. Yeah, how would I explain? Okay, when I run these 72 applications that you don't control, something goes wrong. All right. Now we know who let the dog out.
Yes.
Oh, wait. No, John. John, come back. Yell to John. Quick.
John, don't leave.
I'm about to read the pledge break, and it's all about John. Oh, well. Too bad. Here we go. I'd like to thank John Ormsby for becoming the latest patron of the Podfeed podcast. At Patreon, you get to set the dollar limit you'd like to contribute to a per show limit or a monthly limit. I may not have mentioned this in a long time, but while I normally create 8 shows per month between the NosillaCast and Chit Chat Across the Pond, I only charge the patrons for the NosillaCast. If you get value out of the work we do here, please consider becoming a patron like John. I do not seek to make a profit from this show, but I would dearly like it to not cost me as much money as it does. Can you tell I did my taxes this week? Actually, that reminds me, I need to answer the tax man. Just wrote myself a little note. Alrighty, now it's time for a chapter mark. Oh, look at that. Security bits, copy link, copy. You know, in the last break, we didn't mute you, and I couldn't hear you at all.
Really? So the rumble's gone?
Yeah.
Good.
Because of the
Dynamics processor?
woo. Yes.
What?
You just broke up a whole bunch. There we go. All right, let me find our... Oh, no, it should be in security bits. Uh-oh. Wait. That doesn't go there. You goof. That goes here. Oh. There's another note. Security bits. Backup. Synology. Oh, no. Hazel. In NC folders. Just found out something else. I'm backing up security bits audio. Original audio. Probably shouldn't. Alrighty, here we go. You guys need to hear Bart say plink?
Yes.
Okay. A family favorite.
Where's the waveform? Oh, there it is.
It's coming. You are full on cyborg. Okay, here we go.
Blink.
Did you hear it?
Yep.
Blink. Blink. Blink.
Okay, there we go. Let's see. We want.
You
That
don't want to
was-
overdo it, Al.
And you think it was too much? Oh, I'm gonna bring both these over here and cut that off.
Did you slide? You slid one without sliding the
Yes.
other.
Yeah, because they were from 2 different recordings. That was Bart's recording of him and my recording of me, so they weren't lined up yet.
Are they now?
I'm gonna listen to it. Just don't worry. Do we have any fun this week, Bart?
Well, I hope so.
See,
Well, he came in kind of quick.
Object. Like, it's in black and white.
it's the whole point of why Apple and Google made this, right?
Exactly. Because it's forced people to wear masks in a pandemic, don't you know?
Absolutely. Hey, so I found. See, think it's
Maybe.
good.
You might have had. Now, let's check the end.
might have taken. It's kind of why they wrote it, fools. So.
It takes a level of hubris that may have that kind of hubris. But anyway.
All right.
Okay, so...
Well, that's good. Everything working as designed, is, in other words.
Yeah, exactly.
See? It's perfect.
It's pretty good.
Really? Whoop. There we go. Okay, so now... Oh, I got to move this down. There. And now, watch, I'll take this one, and I'll move it straight up. And I'll catch it with that one, and then I'll slide them over, and I'll put it right about there. Let's hear how that sounds. It does. that time of the week. Too soon.
Too soon.
Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Security Bits
That'll
with
do.
Bart Shots. Do we have any fun this week, Bart?
Well, I hope so. I
hope so. Luckily, we had 4 palate cleansers. By the time we were done, I couldn't remember what we were crazed about. Well, that was a lot of palate cleansing. I don't remember what I was worried about. So that's where we should stop.
Mission
right?
accomplished. Excellent.
So I did get an error.
Okay, well,
All right,
even though
very
we've,
cool.
we've cleansed our palate.
Sorry, Steve?
I was getting a live streaming error. Adjusted data rate due to low internet bandwidth. Please reduce frame rate and/or frame size.
Really? Huh.
But we're on our local network. We're not depending on the internet for intercommunication, right?
Right, but if it's talking about your streaming, remember, you're not only ingesting my video, you're also squirting it back out to the internet.
Right, but that wouldn't cause, I don't think it would cause a delay from what I see when you send it to me over our local network.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
is your Wi-Fi turned off?
Yep. And my backups are paused.
I wish we could pause Backblaze. Did I tell you guys you can't actually pause Backblaze? Isn't that nice? You can tell it to pause, but you have to reboot. You have to stop it and reboot, which is just dumb. All right, gonna wind it up here.
All right.
So you stay secure.
Well, you know what that means. That means we're going to wind things up for this week. Don't forget to show up to the live show, to the live chat during the Apple event next week. Again, it's Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and join us at podfeet.com/chat. But also don't forget to send in your dumb questions, your Everything is Fiddly recordings like Bruce. You can send in comments and suggestions. You can do all of this by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Podfeet. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You want to become a patron like John did? Podfeet.com/Patreon. If you'd rather do a one-time donation, podfeet.com/PayPal. Want to join the conversation? You could join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack. And here's a little hint, Bart hangs out there too. You could join our Facebook community where Bart does not hang out at podfeet.com/Facebook. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. All right, did John come back? Because I'm going to have to play Pet.
So he's in the chat room, but I don't think he's here at the moment. I think he's probably with his dog
outside
still.
with the dog.
Yeah.
Because I was going to play the
Oh, wait,
pledge
he's
break for him
typing.
again. He
Just
is?
got back.
John, you missed pledge break. Let's see. Where was it? Actually, it'd be here. How do I go to that chapter? I thought I could double click a chapter and go to it. There we go.
Well, look at the timestamp.
No, I didn't want to do that.
Oh,
Here
too
we go.
hard.
All right, John, here's pledge break. I'd like to thank John Ormsby for becoming the latest patron of the Podfeet podcast. At Patreon, you get to set the dollar limit you'd like to contribute to a per show limit or a monthly limit. I may not have mentioned this in a long time, but while I normally create 8 shows per month between the NosillaCast and Chit Chat Across the Pond, I only charge the patrons for the NosillaCast. If you get value out of the work we do here, please consider becoming a patron like John. I do not seek to make a profit from this show, but I would dearly like it to not cost me as much money as it does.
You
There
got a
we
chance
go.
to plug Patreon twice.
Yeah, you notice how that worked out. Just
Yeah, right.
coincidentally, I played it twice. By the way, you want to know why I say patron of the Podfeet podcast? That's because I'm trying not to say patron of the Podfeet podcast. That's why I always say it that weird way. Bruce won't be here. Oh, no. Oh, my God, I pledged that much. Yep. John is single-handedly paying for the show now.
You might want to re-examine that pledge, John.
Oh, wait. Oh, he's right. We have to do a blog post count. Chapter mark count. So you should
So
have
I've got
4
5 plus 1, or 4 plus 1 for a total of 4 plus 1 for a total of 5. Let's check this.
Look at that.
What?
Look at the chapter mark I've got my fingertip on.
Am I the only one?
Remember it said marker 6?
Yeah.
On that one? It's because it put the answer up there and it overwrote my my chapter mark.
Oh, interesting. Oh, maybe because it didn't have. Well, why would it do that? Because there was no valid URL there?
I think
Or is
so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, it got confused because there was something above it there.
Yeah.
So that was good. So you have 4 and I have 5.
Plus 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're
Thank
good.
you, Kevin.
Good job.
That was quite good.
Good job, Wingman.
All right.
Wingman comes through.
Well, with my amazing new automation that I introduced last week, I've already got the show is ready. All I got to do is export this and send it up to through Auphonic. I got to sit here and wait for Auphonic. Maybe I'll make a little drinky poo for myself while I do this. So, thank you everybody for coming. I think we're gonna go. I hope as many as people as possible can come. Bruce, I really think you could keep a little chat window open, like on your iPad. Pretend you're taking notes. Just be in the chat room. We'll tell you what's going on. Anyway, Hey, John. Well, I guess now that you're a paying customer, you can make fun of me. That's it. You can make fun of me if you become a paying customer. That's the way it works. I'll be rich. I need levels. Do you think I do? But so a lot of people do that with Patreon. They have tiers, and but then I'd have to give you extra for the tiers. Except, well, they could be things like make fun of me in the live chat room, pay $5 a month, that kind of thing. I'll do. Oh, I know what it is. I'll do voicemail recordings for you for your for your phone. What is it? What are they called? The message, the outgoing message. I could do that.
The greeting.
Tears for some levels. Nice, Bruce. It's an outbrief to NASA Planetary Sciences Division. Well, I guess if that's what you got to do.
By the way.
Oh, level 4. I'll teach you how to do a podcast. Does that work retroactively, Jill? What's that, Steve?
So Ingenuity flies tonight, well, in the wee hours of tomorrow. And this is a little helicopter that Percy had on its belly, Perseverance, and set down on the planet's surface and has driven away. And that little helicopter takes off tomorrow, does its little test flight, hopefully. And the outbrief, the first flight, post-flight outbrief is tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So check it out at NASA.
Where would one go?
One would go to nasa.gov/NASA Live. And they'll have the briefing there.
Cool. Well, I think we'll probably watch that.
Definitely.
I hope it flies. I hope it flies.
Yeah, me too.
Level 5, you can buy my
old Jenny.
Jill is on fire tonight. Yeah. All right, guys. I think it's time to call it 6:03. We're actually late. Oh, Steve, he says nasa.gov/live. We'll get you there.
Okay.
I don't know how John would know.
It's inexplicable.
Inexplicable. All right, we got to go.
Yeah,
see you guys. Bye.
Bye, chat room.
Bye, Rose.
I'm cutting us off.